Welcome to Made in Spain. I'm your co-host, Nalini Sharma.
And I'm Laura Senior Garcia. And we are very happy to be here with you for episode 3, where we're going to be talking about
Benidorm.
Whee! So I do think this is a very interesting and I would say hot topic episode for us in terms of Benidorm, because we are very close geographically to Benidorm. I don't think we've actually mentioned where we live, but Nalini, do you want to just talk a little bit about where you live, and then
I'm basically in the La Nucia Pollup area. So yes. I mean, people would probably recognize La Nucia maybe a bit quicker than I'm just a little bit above that.
Yeah.
And you are a bit closer to Benidorm. You're technically in La Nucia.
So I'm and the reason I wanted to mention that is there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. When I first started traveling for work, and people would ask like, "Hey, where are you from?" And I noticed that when I said, I'm from Benidorm, or because again I was raised there, or you could say that La Nucia, the closest place that would be recognizable in terms of a town, would be Benidorm in terms of recognition. I realized that people would kind of look at me weird, like, "Oh, from Benidorm, like what do you mean?" And I started actually saying like, "Oh, I'm from somewhere that's like close around to Alicante."
Oh, yeah.
And it's called La Nucia, and there's a reason behind that. And for those of you who don't know Benidorm, you'll kind of get to learn a bit more about that in this episode. But there are some connotations that come with it,
right.
And being someone that was raised there, I think sometimes that picture that is sometimes painted, or the perspective that's painted about the town, is not a really full picture of what it's about.
No, it's not a full picture. And I will say, I mean, when we first moved here, I did not know anything about this area. All I know is that we drove from Madrid with the kids and the dog in the car, and jet lagged, tired. We made a wrong turn, and all I did was I saw this big city, and I'm like, wow.
You saw the skyline.
Yeah, I was like, wow, look at this. Look where we're moving. This is fantastic, And that was about it. By the time I had settled in, I started to hear bits and pieces, when you start to integrate yourself into the community, or, your kids are going to school, there'd always be kind of a sly comment about Benidorm. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you don't want to go there, or and I mean, I didn't even know what the city was. I remember driving a few times into it because it was the biggest city around here, to look for a nice place to have an afternoon lunch or go for a drink, but I could never find parking, and I didn't know the city, and I would get lost and I would just leave. I'm like, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm done. And it really wasn't until maybe a year and a half into it, and my son started school at a school closer to Benidorm, that I really started to kind of explore it and see that it's a city that has an interesting side to it that I think has been captured on its own television program in the UK.
I think that there's a show called Benidorm on the...
But there's a whole other side to it, which you introduced me to.
Yes, so just for a little bit of background, Benidorm, many, many years ago, it started off as a fishing village. So before all the massive amount of construction, so today when you are driving even through the highway, you don't really have to go, near, you could say the city or the town. You will see this like massive skyline that kind of looks like Manhattan.
Right.
I actually think there's a tower or a building called the Intempo that for a little bit, I'm not sure if it still is, but for a little bit it was the tallest building in Europe. So it is a really, really high rise kind of building that honestly looks like a UFO. It has like a triangle thing in the middle. So the first thing you notice from far away is the skyline. However, it didn't used to be like that. So my parents moved here, I believe like early 80s, before I was born. And, it was already starting to be a kind of town where a lot of holiday goers would go, both from Madrid. so from the center of Spain, from the north of Spain, from the Basque Country, and also a lot of British tourism, as well as French, Italian, etc.
Well, in the 70s it was the boom, so a lot of building, but also because they opened up the train lines. So, and you have Alicante Station, you have the train line from Madrid, and you also have the airport in Alicante being expanded. And they say that the British tour operators, their first kind of tour package was Benidorm. So it was the all-inclusive, not really expensive, quick getaway, 2 hours on a plane, and you are in sunshine with, the things that you're used to at home. So there's that sort of separate side of it. So people will come here for that quick vacation, and they've left home, but they haven't really left home.
For especially a certain part of the population,
Yeah.
I would say that is 100% true.
Yes.
So I would say that Benidorm is kind of dominated, you could say, by two distinct sides.
Yes.
Which is the day-to-day, the Spanish, the people who live here, the people from the pueblo,
Yes.
as we say it, who are made their life here, who, are maybe multiple generations, from Benidorm or from the south of Spain. There's quite a lot of people that, came from the south here, etc. And then there is a huge part of the town that is British. It's not just the tourists, though. It's also a lot of British people that have made Benidorm their home. Retired. They have businesses there. They have bars, clubs, restaurants, you name it, as well as other things, not just dedicated to the tourism industry, but really have kind of made that their home. So there's two kind of distinct sides. And I think, I can speak a little bit about this because when my father first moved here, being a British person, etc., for many years, I don't think he even really had to try that hard with his Spanish to have to, speak Spanish on a day-to-day basis, because he could get away with speaking English because there's so many people in the town that speak English.
Yeah.
So it is a very interesting setup where you have this one town in the middle of the coast that has almost like a little Britain, you could say, really inside the town.
Yeah. And Irish and Scottish and
so I think it is very unique, and I think a couple of things that we wanted to highlight, when we kind of talked about Benidorm, is that there's this big kind of party side to it. Mm-hmm. There's, the clubs, the nightlife. I think you can pretty much find nightlife all around the year. The other thing, of course, is the weather. I think, again, a lot of people are attracted here because they say it's like a microclimate.
It
not just
honestly,
Benidorm,
yeah,
the whole
it really
Costa
is.
Blanca.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Benidorm itself has a microclimate because you can go to Benidorm and it's a beautiful day on the beach, and you drive 15 minutes in the opposite direction and you're in a windstorm. It really does have its own microclimate.
I think at one point, and I can't remember the specific tour operator, but they were guaranteeing that, like, if you don't get sun, we'll give you your money back. I can't remember exactly who that was, but like where you're like, you guaranteed that you're not going to have like a rainy day, because the amount of rainy days a year, in comparison to other areas, are outstandingly low.
Yeah. And we were talking about this yesterday, but just if we focus on the beach, Poniente, Levante, they are really spectacular beaches. And because Benidorm has a bit of a bad reputation in certain circles, you kind of, you think, I don't want to go to that beach. The beach is clean. The sand is soft. There is no garbage. The water is clear. And it's also, any water is dangerous, but it is a little bit safer for families because it's shallow, as opposed to where often we go Albir. Yes. You go in the water and it drops off immediately and you're up to your neck. Where Benidorm, you can walk quite far out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like you said, they do make a tremendous effort to keep the beach very clean. I'm not sure exactly how many times a week or if it's every day. I think it's every night, especially in the summer. That
in the summer, it's every night.
They rake the beaches with this like special machines and, you know, basically take anything that's on the sand out. So you're guaranteed a good beach experience.
Yeah, it is really beautiful.
So before you and I met, when you had heard about Benidorm, did you ever hear any references to the English Square?
All the time. And people would say something. I'd say, oh, where's that? Or, you know, there's this place and I got this, or you should check this out. And I'd say, oh, where is it? And they say, oh, it's in the English Square. Or you know, conversely, a funny story of something they heard that happened on the weekend. Where'd that happen? In the English Square. And I thought, well, okay. I thought, I must be really confused, because at that point, I would drive through Benidorm for various things. And I could never find a square. I did not know where the square was. And it wasn't until we went to do our nails. We went for a nail appointment, but we were driving down the street, and she's giving me a little tour, and Laura says, "This is the English Square," and I'm like, "What? It's not a square. There's no." To me, a square is an open square, you know, like a plaza, and you have businesses and restaurants around, and everybody's in the middle, you know, and you kind of go from one to the other, or not streets that maybe make up a square, or it's just there's no square. So for anybody who's
expecting like, you know, Union Square, like, you are not going to find that.
It's not like that. No.
So one of the things that when we were doing the pre-work to get prepared for our episode, again, having grown up there, having, you know, had my first kind of like nightlife experiences, which is probably not a great place to have your first nightlife experiences, let me just say that, in Benidorm, I actually called my brother and I said, do you know why they call it the Square?
I asked you.
You know, I was like, I looked online, I saw some, you know, little bits and pieces about the fact that I guess at one point it became so heavily populated by British businesses. So, you know, where you would go for like your breakfast, your drinks, the hotels, everything was in the same part, that they kind of said, oh, it's the English Square because it's like the English have taken over that part of town. So it was that's why they were referring to it as the Square. Interestingly enough, if you would have asked me, and it's probably not correct, I would have said it was the Square because there's some very prominent clubs that were there for a very long time. Some of them are still there. Like you could, they would kind of form a square. So I'm not sure that there's a specific answer to why they call it the Square. It's just the English side. To kind of illustrate some of the stuff that you would see there, if you haven't been, you know, you're going to find a very, let's say,
eclectic.
Yes, a very eclectic nightlife.
Yep.
But I will say though that if you are in an open mindset, you will always have a good time. So what I mean by that is,
I will just say some things can't be unseen.
Yes,
that's your.
Be careful if you're walking around with your kids.
Yeah, your warning. Some things can't be unseen.
Yes,
once you see it.
And the reason I say you always have a good time is if I think of like, hey, you know, let's go on a night out and kind of let's see what happens, and, you know, let's just kind of enjoy ourselves and not know, you know, kind of unforeseen circumstances. And you ask me like, where are we going? I would say, let's go for a drink in the Square because it is a lot more kind of a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yes,
it's fun.
And no one is going to care what you're wearing, you know, who you're with, if you're walking around. You know, I mean, I have been sitting there in a family situation in a restaurant and seen 4 guys walk by in mankinis, which is, and if someone doesn't know what that is, it's like, maybe don't look it up. But it's basically a very inappropriate, like, man bikini, you could say, and it was bright daylight, you know, and
in the day.
Oh yeah, they were walking towards there, so you can see all kinds of things. So 2 dates that are kind of key in that part of Benidorm a year is after the Benidorm fiestas, which are the more like regional fiestas with the peñas and all that. They do the fancy dress party,
right?
So that's in November. where and that is specifically in the English Square.
Yeah.
And you're going to find, people dressed up as all kinds of wild things, and all kinds of different experiences. And also St. Patrick's Day in March. Those are like
that's mad.
Yeah,
That's
two big days there. And again, if you're looking for good fish and chips or, a full-on English breakfast, that's the place to go.
And also, it's fun. I mean, you take things with a grain of salt. So Benidorm, yes, it has a bad reputation, and you can get into trouble in pretty much any city in the world.
Of course, yeah.
It has a reputation for those types of things because most of it is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of it is true, but you can pick and choose.
Yeah,
or
you can still even like choose to go and enjoy it just with a different mindset.
Exactly,
knowing what you're getting into. Like, you know what to expect when you're going there. Or
if you don't, it's a learning experience.
Exactly. So that's a little bit about the English side, but let's talk a little bit about the Spanish side, you could say, or what we would call also the Old Town.
The Old Town, which is it's a really special place, and I think for people, I mean, you were saying this yesterday that your grandmother would probably have never gone to the English side, and vice versa. There are probably people who've really never gone to the Old Town because they maybe live on that side. That's where their life is situated. It's not good or bad. It's just, kind of where you're in your own bubble and you have everything that you need. But the Spanish side of Benidorm, the Old Town, is it's really pretty and it's a really nice time and it's very interesting as well.
Absolutely. So I was sharing with Nalini about my grandmother. She wasn't originally from Benidorm, but she moved with us when I was born. And I was saying to her, thinking about, her kind of age and the kind of daily activities that she would get involved in, unless for some reason, maybe because my dad is, from the UK and we specifically went to the English area for something that he was reminiscent of, she would not have gone there because there would be really nothing there for her.
Right.
So she would have normally not gone there. So I suspect for a lot of the kind of older Spanish people, that are not involved in those kind of activities, they would not really go there much at all. So they may not really see or, know that reference to Benidorm that other people may have from outside. Because what they're seeing is a much more normal, the market, the beach, the schools, the cafeterias, the businesses, the day-to-day of any normal town.
I mean, we've talked about this. We feel that Benidorm needs a bit of a rebrand. It needs to be rebranded.
We're starting the rebranding without the specific city asking us to.
Just to showcase the other side of it, which is it's really. I mean, you can go down on a Saturday afternoon, walk around. There's all kinds of people out. You've got families, you've got couples. They're lovely restaurants. Benidorm might not be known for shopping, but they have some really beautiful stores there that sell designer items, and they're fantastic. It's you can get a bit of everything. You can get a little beach cover up, and you can go next door and buy, a name brand fancy outfit if you want. A few doors down, you've got the sweets shop, and you've got the tapas alley. It just has everything, and that leads you. If you wind your way through it, you end up at the church, and that view that's a priceless view.
And when we do our Slice of Life section today, we'll talk a little bit more about specific places, restaurants, different bars that you can go to. But generally, I would say if you're thinking about a trip to Benidorm, just know that depending on where you stay in the town, you're going to get a very different experience.
Yes.
That you can pretty much feel like you can walk everywhere. You don't need a car. It's very, very walkable, the whole town. You have the beach, the restaurants, the kind of cool places that you can hang out during the day. You don't have to worry about dressing fancy or anything like that. You'll be fine literally everywhere you go.
You can wear anything you want pretty much.
Absolutely. And again, I would say that would encourage people to, try the experience. Yeah. And really, I think the whole, don't judge a book by its covers, really give yourself the chance to explore the town.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to do our little slice of life.
So for our slice of life, for our episode about Benidorm, we're going to be talking about two different times that we were in Benidorm. One that was kind of a nighttime actually with kids and friends. And another one where it was just the two of us, where we went to two very different sides of the town. And as we always do in the slice of life, we have a drink.
Yes. And some food. Okay,
Here
what are we
go.
drinking today?
So
do you want me to pour it?
Yes.
Okay, pass your glass.
Thank you.
Okay, tell me about this. I'm not a huge wine drinker, but this wine is from particularly our region.
Yes, not just our region, but our area. So Enrique Mendoza is actually a winery or what we call bodega that you can find very, very close to where we are. I actually think we're about 10 minutes away by car. And this is a white wine. It's a Chardonnay. It's really beautiful. People pair red wine, white wine with different things. I think, whatever you like. I do think white wine actually goes really well with what we're eating today, which is a Spanish omelette or what we call tortilla de patata.
Yes.
This specific Spanish omelette, it has also onion in it, which is quite common.
Controversy.
It is. Do you like your Spanish omelette with onion, without onion? Do you like the egg more cooked, less cooked inside? It's kind of like the whole pineapple and pizza, argument. It is a
controversy.
Yeah, but this is very controversial here. Is like people are very passionate about how they like their tortilla. But today we're having the tortilla with onion, cebolla, and some white wine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's try this.
It's nice, right? It's
sweet.
Nice. Yeah. So the tortilla, we've actually got it here for those of you that, can't see it. And if you do want to check out our YouTube, you'll be able to actually see it or probably see it on some of our socials with some nice cut bread with some olive oil. That would be a typical way to do this. I gave Nalini a very sharp knife for this tortilla. It's almost like a sushi knife.
It's we should say who made this.
Yeah, so my aunt made this, my wonderful aunt Conchi, and it just looks beautiful. I call her like the master of the tortilla. I'm going to turn it around here as well so you can see like the two different sides.
I should tell the viewers, listeners, that tortilla is really one of my favorite things. I love it. I love a tortilla.
Can you pass the bread?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So I want you to take a bite and tell me what you think, because you haven't tried my aunt's tortilla.
I'm going to love it. Oh, my God. Look, I would eat this every day.
It's good, right?
It's so good. And oddly enough, you don't eat it hot.
No.
You eat it more room temperature.
I actually would say that, again, that's another part of the argument. Some people like it hot and reheat it.
Really?
But to me, I actually prefer it room temperature.
She has to teach me how to make it.
Oh, yeah, she can. She actually makes a version of this with caramelized onion. Which is really, really good.
It's so rude. Okay, my last bite.
Promise.
You have to fill the void now.
Okay, Nalini, so let's talk about these two contrasting experiences that we had in Benidorm. Maybe we can start off with the one that you and I had, and then we'll go to the one where we took the kids.
Which is super funny.
Yes. So the first time you and I went, that's when I think intentionally wanted to show you a little bit more of the other side of town. We talked a lot about the English side. So we went down to the old town. We went to the castle area, or Castillo. There is like a dividing point between the two beaches, between the Levante and Poniente beach. My understanding, and I hope I get this right, is that Levante is because the sun comes up through that beach. Poniente is because the sun comes down through that beach. So Levante, as in like it's coming up. Poniente because it's coming down. And they're two different beaches, very different vibes. Levante is a very narrow beach. Poniente is a kind of very wide beach. So we went to that intersection in the middle in the castle where you can actually see both sides, which is very, very pretty. And they have some cannons there, and they have like the old church, the Iglesia de San Jaime. It's a very, very pretty part of town. What was your kind of first impression when you kind of rolled up there?
We went sort of my time because I'm not a. That's the other thing we should mention is that things often start very late in Benidorm, and I'm not a stay up late kind of person.
I think that's probably the only thing we have to be grateful of for COVID. There's not a lot of things that happened that were good during COVID, but one of the things I think that was good is because of the lockdowns, the Spanish people started to also get into the habit of doing more what we call tardeo,
Yes.
which is basically going out in the afternoon instead of doing this thing where you wait until 10 p.m. to go for dinner and then you meet everybody afterwards, which means that nowhere is busy until 1 o'clock in the morning. And if you are, like either of us, by 1 o'clock in the morning, you'd rather be in bed, it can be kind of annoying. So actually during COVID, that's one of the things that also happened in Benidorm is there was a lot more of this afternoon, kind of going out life that started.
Well, the first night we went out, you gave me a wonderful tour. So we started, and it was a really nice walking tour. We had we went for dinner. We can mention the restaurant. We went to Devora.
Yes. And
it's a beautiful view.
Yeah, so it's basically there's a little terrace that used to be the aquarium area. There used to be an aquarium there many years ago, yes. And then they turned that into a restaurant, and it's a little terrace that almost pops over the sea, and the only view you have is the sea, like surrounding you all around.
It's spectacular. So we had a nice dinner there, and then we'd stopped in a bar beforehand. I can't remember where. It was a funny little bar that had a dog and a child dancing, but as you say, as you do in Benidorm.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Do not be surprised. This is quite representative.
Yeah, there was a dog and a child on the dance floor, but it was fine. There was a family dancing, but again, no judgment, just something super funny that you might get not used to seeing, but you're not surprised once you see it the next time you go back if there's a family out. Yeah. It wasn't a nightclub. It was just a little bar,
like afternoon bar.
But we had dinner there, and then we had a really nice walk along the beach, and you kind of gave me a nice tour. You showed me where you grew up, which was really special. And then we went somewhere else. We had another drink. There was a little bit of music.
Yeah, so we found there's a new little spot that's open, and shout out, I think it's called Nova. And it's in that Old Town area, right in front of the church. So I do think it's quite comical that they have the church, and right across the church, you're looking at the church from this cocktail bar.
Yeah.
And they have some very special cocktails. It's got a really cool vibe. Interestingly enough, I actually think that's, even though it's in the Old Town, it's more geared towards that kind of English-British population, but it's really nice. Really nice. Yeah.
Nice place, very friendly, and a nice place that if you're just walking around and you want to stop and have maybe a cocktail that's a bit more curated, that's a perfect place to do it.
Yeah, they do a really good espresso martini. They have like a few really, really good cocktails. So that was absolutely beautiful, and I was very happy to see you see that part of it. There's also something that's really kind of come out over the last few years, which is there's a lot of these like gin and tonic bars where gin and tonic is a really big thing in Spain, so you can go to bars that just specialize in gin and tonics, and some of them have like 100 plus different kinds of gins, etc. So that was really cool. That is very near the Basque area where you can go for pinchos and tapas, and you can basically bar hop to all these different pincho places. That's all in that Old Town area.
And people wouldn't know that. If you just did a quick drive, you would think, oh, it's just fish and chips or an English fry up or, some coffee shops. But once you get really into it and you walk, you can't drive down there. You have to walk.
Yeah.
You don't have to travel far to experience some of these things.
Absolutely. And you're very much, like you said, in an area that you can walk from one little Basque pincho place to another, or you can even go for like a really good bowl of Japanese ramen. There's a lot of choice basically. So that was our kind of, you could say, Old Town, downtown experience.
Yes.
And again, also some nice clothing shops, and there's even some kind of designer outlet areas there as well that you can go to.
And they have fantastic shoes.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
With a lot of products actually made in Spain. Really nice shoes.
Which, by the way, we are going to be having an episode all about shoes, particularly about, the factories in Elche in a few episodes. But yes, so shoes and handbags always close and dear to our hearts.
Do you want to talk about
The night with the kids?
Okay, this sounds completely irresponsible, but
It was very responsible.
it was nothing. We took a taxi, first of all. We were in taxis.
We did take a taxi, and we had a friend visit from France. Yes. She lives in France, but she's originally from the UK.
Yeah.
So I think, again, going back to like how I also feel sometimes being, half British and going into that area where it's like, oh, this is almost like a bit guilty, where, this really representative, of, what you consider to be British. But yes, I think in some cases it is.
So
she came with her 14-year-old daughter.
Her 14-year-old daughter and my 12-year-old son, and they made a very cute little match.
Yes.
For the evening. They were super cute. But your idea was, we're going to go karaoke.
That's my guilty pleasure.
So she's
I do like to sing.
Yeah, we're going to go karaoke. I said, okay, I'm not going to do it, but I'll go. And at the time, I was coming off an injury where I had to use a cane.
Yes.
I was with my cane. Yeah, so it was a really funny picture where with these two kids, and three adults, me with my cane. Anyway, we go to the old town. Sorry, we go into the English Square.
So, and to give some background on this, I am always trying to rope people in to go to karaoke because no one ever wants to go to karaoke. And I have heard many, many times about this place that everybody says is like not that great. It's, the way I've had it described to me by multiple different people is when you walk in there, your shoes will stick to the floor.
Oh, is that the place we went?
That's next to the place we went.
What is the name of the place?
It's called the Black Chicken. The world famous Black Chicken.
But did we go to the Black Chicken, or we went to the place?
We tried to go to the Black Chicken. No, they told us we couldn't go in there with the kid.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we had the kids in tow. But I will say the men were very friendly. They were all like, "Hey, babe, what's happened to your?" I was like, "Oh, nothing. I just fell down." I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a fun night."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Although it wasn't night. It was 5:00 in the afternoon.
It was at that point 5:00 in the afternoon, and in a very friendly and responsible way, I actually walked into the Black Chicken and said, "Hey, can we come in here and sing with the kids? Because it's early and we can leave." It's like, no minors allowed in here. Okay, but next door there was a very large karaoke place.
Minors were allowed.
Yes, and we did go in there, and they did say you have to leave here by 11 p.m.
No, it was way earlier. We sat down. Okay, we sit down.
Okay.
It was an older crowd.
Oh, sorry. The 11 p.m. was the next place. So
Yeah.
the place where we went at that point.
Yeah.
But can you remember why they told us we had to leave?
It's super funny. Okay, I've never been to this place before. The kids are there. The kids have never been out. Like, it's not as if I go out with my son on 6 or 7 o'clock on a Saturday to
Disclaimer. Yes.
to the English Square. We walk in. You say you're going to go get drinks.
Yeah.
The crowd that's there at the time, they're older.
Yeah.
And they're karaokeing.
Yes. Some of them very well.
Some very well, and they're taking it very seriously. I mean, it's not a lot of people, but enough. We sit down very close to the stage. Why, I don't know. But the two kids, or the two children that were mine and your friend's daughter, sit down and immediately are like, woo! Like super loud clapping. And
It looked like we were contracted to cheer the crowd up, basically.
I said, it's as if we've never left the house. Our kids have been captive for their entire, like they've never seen anything like this. But they were, and I think at one point, my other son called me and he's like, where are you? I said, oh, well,
we're near the Black Chicken.
we just came to karaoke. Then Laura comes back to the table and you've got all like the tray of drinks and you put the drinks down. You're like, oh, you got to hurry up. You got to drink this fast. And I said, why? It's like 7:20.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, Sticky Vicky is coming on at 8 and the kids can't be here. And then my son turns around and says, who's Sticky Vicky? Oh my goodness.
And then I had to clarify, not the original Sticky Vicky, because, Sticky Vicky passed away. She was a world-recognized icon when it comes to Benidorm of, like, sexy magic. I think that's how you would describe it. But actually now her daughter was coming in there to do a show. And, again, we're not going to start describing what it's all about.
No,
but
Google it if you want.
Yeah, if you want to be entertained, Google it. But the point is, we had to leave. because it wasn't appropriate for the kids. But we did leave, and then went on to the next place, which was a Spanish place.
A Spanish place with
Continued karaoke.
They continued the karaoke. My son played poker. No, not poker. Oh my god, that sounds so even slightly better.
We took them to a casino.
Yeah,
No, it was
pool
Yes.
with a
mixed crowd.
It was a mixed crowd. I said, I think you were adopted into possibly some kind of underworld gang. They seemed to like you. You were the same size as them. So, and then we left there for a cheap late night Chinese.
Exactly.
But I will say there were other children out at the same time. There were all
100%.
families. It was super safe. It was a lot of fun.
There were children that were 8 years younger than the children that were out with us. But the point is that I think we were home by 10 p.m.
It wasn't late. We were home. We took a taxi home, but it was fun.
But it was a great experience, and they loved it. We loved it. It was in Benidorm. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. And I think the contrast and why we wanted to share this in a slice of life is you can have some great times if you really kind of go into it with an open mind and just make the most out of it, make the most out of the place. It may not be like 100% your thing where you are, but just really kind of open your eyes and see that there's always something that you can take away and take from the environment that you're in.
Yeah, it's not the ballet.
No, it is not.
It's not the ballet. It's not.
This is not the suggested cultural experience.
No, but we had a fun night with our kids, and again, it was something very organic, and you walk away with it just having a nice night. It was really clean family fun with the karaoke and some nice food and a couple of drinks and a safe ride home.
There you go. Excellent. So before we go to our phrase of the day for today's episode.
Oh my God, Laura, I literally block out that phrase. I forgot we have to do it. Okay, I'm ready.
It's probably a good thing. No, we did get a few comments from the viewers and the listeners about the phrase of the day for the second episode. T-shirts may be incoming.
Oh,
yeah. For those of you who do not remember the phrase. I
my glass.
strongly suggest going to listen to the second episode if you do not remember the phrase of the day for the second episode. And just a little teaser as well for what's coming up before we go to the phrase of the day. We are going to be looking into wonderful olives and olive oil and different parts
Liquid gold.
Exactly. And what's going on in that space. We're also going to be talking about Mallorca coming up.
We're going to do the shoe factories in Elche, which again, those factories produce shoes for
all kinds of
luxury shoe brands. And it's, near the airport that they're manufacturing it.
And cowboy boots, interestingly enough. Yeah. So again, lots of leather goods. So that's what's coming up in the next few episodes. But for the phrase of the day, for our third episode, I wanted to share with you, Nalini. So it would be vete a freír espárragos. So let's try and translate that to English first.
Okay.
Go to
the asparagus.
Fry asparagus. Go to fry asparagus. Vete a freír espárragos.
Go to fry. Okay, that one. No.
So vete a freír espárragos is like a way to say like, gosh, just leave me alone.
Really?
Just go. Like, vete a freír espárragos. Like, imagine you're having an argument and you're frustrated with someone.
Okay.
And you don't want to use something like rude.
Right.
Vete a freír espárragos. Like,
that's much better.
Yeah.
It's much better than what a lot of people would say.
Go to fry asparagus. Not exactly sure what asparagus has done to anyone, but, go to fry asparagus. That's the sentence.
Okay. Have you used it?
Oh, yeah, many times.
Oh, okay.
Vete a freír espárragos. Yeah.
And I think we've promoted what's coming up, but I just wanted to ask you this question, and I can answer it too. Dream guest, if our podcast does well and it grows and we can have people on.
Oh, my. You go first.
I have a dream guest. I would like Georgina to come on because she says she's more Spanish than Iberico ham. That's a phrase of hers, actually. Well, it's a direct quote.
I have to say, when you watch her in the private jet, eating the tortilla and the serrano ham and the bread.
And I like her.
Yes. And I honestly believe it is authentic. Like,
It is.
I believe she's eating that stuff not because it's like, oh, look at me, I'm eating, but people may think I'm living on lettuce or whatever. I actually think it is authentic. Yeah, I think it would be pretty cool to interview her.
Yeah. That's my
I
dream guest.
need to think about that one for the next one.
Okay.
I'll tell you next time.
All right.